Before we start, comment where you're watching from and your age. London, England, Garden Lodge, November 1990. Freddie Mercury sits in his living room. He's dying. He knows it. Everyone knows it. The AIDS has taken everything except his will to keep living. And even that is fading. He's lost 40 pounds. His clothes hang off him. His face is gaunt. His eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that once commanded stadiums, are sunken deep. But today, Freddie is nervous. More nervous than he's been in years. Because today, after 20 years of silence, his father is coming. Bomi Bulsara, the Parsi man who raised Farrokh in Zanzibar, who taught him discipline and tradition, who expected his son to follow the path, to be respectable, to marry a Parsi woman, to continue the lineage. The father who stopped speaking to his son when Freddie told him the truth, when Farrokh became Freddie, when the proper Parsi boy became a rock star, when the son he knew disappeared. That was 1970, 20 years ago. And now, Bomi is coming, because Freddie is dying. And some things need to be said before it's too late. Jim Hutton helps Freddie into a chair by the window, the one with the best light. Freddie wants to look as healthy as possible, wants his father to see him as strong, even though they both know it's a lie. "You don't have to do this," Jim says quietly. "If it's too much, I have to." Freddie's voice is weak but certain. "He's my father, and I'm running out of time." The doorbell rings at exactly 3 p.m. Bomi Bulsara has always been punctual. One of the many things about his father that used to drive Freddie crazy: the rigid schedules, the strict routines, the inflexible rules. But today, Freddie is grateful for the punctuality. Because if his father had been late, Freddie might have lost his nerve. Jim opens the door. Bomi stands on the doorstep, 70 years old now, still wearing a traditional Parsi shirt, still carrying himself with that quiet dignity that Freddie remembers from childhood, but older, so much older. His hair completely white, his face lined with time and worry. His hands, Freddie remembers those hands, strong and capable, now trembling slightly. Bomi and Jim exchange awkward greetings. Then Jim leads him to the living room, to Freddie. Father and son see each other for the first time in 2 decades. Freddie tries to stand. His legs won't support him. He falls back into the chair. Bomi's face doesn't change, but his hands grip his walking stick tighter. His knuckles turn white. "Farrokh," he says. Just the name, nothing else. And hearing his real name in his father's voice, Freddie feels something break inside him. A wall he's been building for 20 years. A barrier between Farrokh and Freddie, between the boy his father knew and the man he became. "Father," Freddie whispers. They stare at each other. 20 years of silence sitting between them like a physical thing. A weight. A presence. Jim quietly excuses himself, closes the door, leaves them alone. For a long moment, neither speaks. What do you say after 20 years? How do you bridge a gap that wide? Finally, Bomi moves, slowly, his age showing in every step. He crosses the room, sits in the chair opposite Freddie. Up close, the shock is visible on his face. His son, his beautiful boy, is dying. The evidence is everywhere. In the sunken cheeks, the skeletal frame, the KS lesions on his skin. "You're sick," Bomi says. Not a question, a statement. "Yes." "How long?" "I was diagnosed in 1987, maybe earlier. The doctors aren't sure." 3 years. Bomi's voice is flat, processing. "You've been sick for 3 years and you didn't tell me." "We weren't speaking. You made it clear you didn't want to hear from me." Bomi flinches. "I never said that. You didn't have to. When I told you when I came out to you, you walked away. You stopped answering my letters. You told Mother not to contact me. You erased me." "I didn't erase you. I was..." Bomi pauses, searching for words. I was trying to protect you." Freddie laughs, a bitter, broken sound. "Protect me? From what?" "From yourself, from the path you were choosing, from the shame that would come." "The shame?" Freddie's voice is sharp now, angry. "You mean the shame of having a gay son? The shame of me not following your Parsi traditions? The shame of Farrokh becoming Freddie?" "Yes, Bomi doesn't deny it. All of that, in our community, in our tradition, what you chose, it brought dishonor." "I didn't choose to be gay, Father. I chose to be honest about it. There's a difference." "Is there?" Bomi looks genuinely confused. "In my world, in the world I knew, this choice, this life, it was wrong, sinful, against nature. And now? Is it still wrong? Is it still sinful?" Freddie gestures at himself, at his dying body. "Because if it is, if you came here to tell me I'm going to hell or that I deserve this, you can leave. I don't have the strength for that conversation." Bomi is quiet for a long time. His hands fold in his lap, his eyes distant, remembering something. "Do you remember," he says finally, "when you were 8 years old, in Zanzibar? You found that injured bird?" Freddie blinks, the sudden shift in conversation throwing him. "The parrot, with the broken wing. Yes, you brought it home, wanted to keep it, heal it. I told you to let it go, that it was wild, that keeping it would be cruel. I remember. You made me release it even though I knew it would die." "But it didn't die." Bomi looks at Freddie now, really looks. "Do you remember what happened?" Freddie does remember. Vaguely. "It flew away. I thought it would fall, but it flew. It flew because it was meant to fly, because being caged, even in safety, even with food and care, was worse than the risk of freedom." Bomi's voice cracks slightly. "I've thought about that bird many times over the years, and I've thought about you." Freddie doesn't speak, doesn't trust his voice. "When you told me you were gay, when you said you were leaving the Parsi community, when you became Freddie Mercury instead of Farrokh Bulsara, I tried to cage you. I tried to keep you safe in the way I understood safety, marriage, tradition, respectability. You rejected me. I tried to protect you from a world I thought would destroy you. But I was wrong." Bomi's eyes are wet now. "You didn't need protection. You needed permission. Permission to fly. And I didn't give it to you." Freddie feels tears on his own face. "No, you didn't." "I'm sorry." Bomi's voice breaks completely. "Farrokh, Freddie, I'm so sorry. I failed you. As a father, I failed you." And there it is. The words Freddie has needed to hear for 20 years. The apology, the acknowledgement, the acceptance. But hearing them now, when he's dying, when there's no time left to rebuild what was lost, it's almost worse than never hearing them at all. "Why now?" Freddie asks. "Why come now? Why not 10 years ago? 15? Why wait until I'm dying?" "Because I was afraid." Bomi wipes his eyes. "Afraid of what I would find. Afraid that you would reject me the way I rejected you. Afraid that I'd lost you completely, and facing that truth would kill me." "And what changed?" "Your mother. She called me last week, told me you were dying, told me I had weeks at most to make peace with you. And I realized—" Bomi's voice shakes. "I realized that losing you to death would be unbearable. But losing you without ever telling you I was wrong, that I was proud, that I loved you, that would be unforgivable." Freddie closes his eyes. The tears are flowing freely now. 20 years of pain, 20 years of wanting this moment, and now it's here, and he doesn't know what to do with it. "Are you?" he whispers. "Proud." Bomi stands, slowly, painfully, his age and emotion making every movement difficult. He crosses to Freddie's chair, kneels down beside it, takes Freddie's skeletal hand in both of his. "I watched you perform," Bomi says. "Once, Live Aid. 1985. I was in London for business. Your mother didn't know. I told her I was in meetings, but I went to Wembley, stood in the crowd with 72,000 other people, and I watched my son command that stage. Freddie stares at him. You were there? I was there. And Freddie, I have never seen anything like it. You owned that stage. 72,000 people, and every single one of them belonged to you. You moved, and they moved. You sang, and they sang. You raised your arms, and an entire stadium raised their arms with you. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you come backstage? Because I was ashamed. Not of you, of myself, of the fact that I'd missed so much, that I'd rejected the most extraordinary person I'd ever known because he didn't fit the small box I'd built for him. Bomi's tears fall on their joined hands. So yes, I am proud. I am so impossibly proud of what you've accomplished, of the music you've made, of the joy you've brought to millions, of the courage it took to be yourself in a world that didn't want you to be. Freddie can't speak. His chest is too tight, his throat too closed. 20 years of pain and anger and longing all trying to escape at once. I know it's too late, Bomi continues. I know I can't give you back the years we lost. I know you're dying, and nothing I say now can fix what I broke. But I need you to know, before you go, before I lose you forever, I need you to know that I love you. Farrokh, Freddie, whoever you are, whoever you choose to be, I love you, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. And Freddie, who has performed for billions, who has commanded stadiums, who has never shown weakness on stage, breaks completely. He leans forward, falls into his father's arms, and sobs. Bomi holds him, this fragile, dying man who was once his strong, beautiful boy. And he cries too, for the wasted years, for the pain he caused, for the son he almost lost. They stay like that for a long time. Father and son, finally reunited, finally honest, finally free. When they pull apart, both exhausted, Bomi sits back in his chair. They're quiet for a moment, processing, healing. Tell me, Bomi says finally. Tell me about your life, the parts I missed. I want to know everything. And Freddie, weak, dying, but lighter somehow, tells him. He tells his father about Queen, about the early days in London, about the struggle to make it, about Bohemian Rhapsody and the record label saying it would never work, about Live Aid, about the tours and the albums and the millions of people who loved the music. He tells him about Mary Austin, about falling in love with her, about her being the love of his life even though he's gay, about how love is more complicated than gender, about how she's still here, still his closest friend, still the person who knows him best. He tells him about Jim, about finding love again, about someone who accepts him completely, who takes care of him, who's staying even though staying means watching him die. He tells him about the diagnosis, about the terror, about the decision to keep creating anyway, about the show must go on and innuendo and all the music he made while dying. And Bomi listens, really listens, not judging, not correcting, just hearing his son's life, the life he missed, the life he rejected. 4 hours pass, the sun sets. Garden Lodge fills with twilight. But neither of them moves. They just talk and listen and heal. Finally, Freddie is too exhausted to continue. His voice is gone, his energy depleted. I should go, Bomi says. Let you rest. Will you come back? Freddie's voice is desperate. Please, will you come back? Every day, Bomi promises. If you'll have me, every day until... He can't finish the sentence. Until Freddie dies. Until there are no more days. I'll have you, Freddie whispers. I'll always have you. Bomi stands, starts to leave, then stops, turns back. One more thing, he says, At your funeral, when the time comes, may I say the Zoroastrian prayers, the traditional Parsi funeral rites?" Freddie is surprised. "You want to? You are still my son, still Parsi, no matter what name you use or life you live, and I want to send you off properly, with the prayers our ancestors used, the prayers that honor the light within you." Freddie nods, unable to speak, moved beyond words. "Thank you," Bomi says, "for giving me this chance, for letting me back in. I don't deserve it." "Yes, you do. You're my father, and I've missed you." Bomi's face crumples. He crosses back to Freddie, bends down, kisses his son's forehead, a gesture he hasn't made since Freddie was a child. "I love you, my son." "I love you too, father." Then Bomi leaves. Jim comes back in, finds Freddie crying, but not sad tears. Something else. Relief, joy, grief, gratitude, all mixed together. "How did it go?" Jim asks. "He said he was proud of me." Freddie's voice is full of wonder. After everything, after 20 years, he said he was proud. Jim smiles. Of course he is. How could he not be? And for the first time in months, maybe years, Freddie feels something like peace. Bomi comes back the next day, and the day after that, and every day for the next month. They don't talk about the past anymore. They talk about now, about music and memories and small moments, about Freddie's cats, about Bomi's garden in London, about nothing important and everything important. Sometimes they just sit in silence. Comfortable now. No need to fill every moment with words. Jer, Freddie's mother, comes too, the three of them together. A family again. Fractured but healing. Late but real. One day, Bomi brings a box. Old photographs from Zanzibar. Pictures of Farrokh as a child. In traditional Parsi clothes. Smiling. Happy. Innocent. "I want you to have these," Bomi says, "to remember where you came from, who you were before you became who you are." Freddie looks through them, sees the boy he was, sees his father young and strong, sees his mother beautiful and full of life, sees a family that no longer exists except in photographs and memory. "Thank you," Freddie says. "I'd forgotten some of these, forgotten how happy we were." "We can be happy again," Bomi says, "even now, even for whatever time is left." And they are, in small ways, in quiet moments, in the peace of reconciliation. November 23, 1991, 1 year after their reconciliation, Freddie is dying. He has days left, maybe hours. The family gathers: Jim, Mary, Joe Finelli, Phoebe Freestone, and Bomi and Jer. Freddie can barely speak, can barely move. The AIDS has taken almost everything, but he's conscious, aware, present. Bomi sits beside his bed, holds his hand, and begins to pray. In Avestan, the ancient language of Zoroastrian prayers, the prayers Freddie heard as a child in Zanzibar, the prayers of his ancestors. Ashem vohu vahishtem asti. Righteousness is the best good. The prayers for the dying, the prayers that honor the divine light within every soul. Freddie's eyes are closed, but tears run down his face, hearing his father's voice, hearing the prayers of his childhood, coming home. Finally, completely. When the prayers end, Bomi leans close, whispers in Freddie's ear, words no one else hears, private words, father to son. Last words. Freddie's lips move, a response, too quiet for anyone to hear. But Bomi hears, and he smiles through his tears and nods. "Rest now," Bomi says. "You've earned it, my son. Rest." November 24th, 1991, 7 p.m. Freddie Mercury dies. The world learns the next day. Front page news everywhere. Freddie Mercury, Queen frontman, dead at 45 from AIDS complications. The funeral is private, small, just family and close friends. And as promised, Bomi Bulsara performs the Zoroastrian funeral rites. He stands over his son's body, dressed in traditional white, and he prays, in Avestan, ancient words for honoring the dead, for releasing the soul, for acknowledging the divine light that lived in Freddie Mercury, in Farrokh Bulsara, in his son. Mary Austin cries quietly. Jim Hutton stands with his head bowed. The band members, Brian, Roger, John, watch in respectful silence. And Bomi, 71 years old, having lost 20 years with his son and gained only 1 year back, honors Freddie the only way he knows how, with tradition, with prayer, with love. When it's over, when the prayers are complete, Brian May approaches Bomi. "That was beautiful," Brian says. "Freddie would have loved it." "He did love it," Bomi says. "I prayed for him while he was alive, too. In his final days. He asked me to. Said it reminded him of home, of Zanzibar, of being Farrokh." "He never stopped being Farrokh," Roger Taylor says. "He just became Freddie, too, both at once." Bomi nods. "I understand that now. I wish I'd understood it sooner." "You understood it when it mattered," Jim says quietly. "In time for him to know. In time for him to feel it. That's what counts." Years pass. Interviews are done. Documentaries are made. The story of Freddie Mercury is told and retold. And in 2010, Jim Hutton publishes his memoir, Mercury and Me. In it, he reveals the reconciliation with Bomi, the 20-year silence, the final year together, the Zoroastrian prayers, and he reveals what Bomi whispered to Freddie in those final moments, the private words no one else heard. Bomi had said, "I see you, Farrokh. I see Freddie. I see all of you, and I'm proud. I'm so proud." And Freddie, dying, barely able to speak, had whispered back, "I know, Papa. I know." Papa, the Gujarati word for father. The word Freddie hadn't used in 20 years. That was Freddie's final gift to his father. Permission, forgiveness, love. When the memoir is published, journalists contact Bomi, ask for comment, ask about the reconciliation. Bomi, now 90 years old, gives a short statement. "My son was the bravest person I ever knew. Not because he performed for millions, not because he faced death with dignity, but because he forgave me when I didn't deserve forgiveness. Because he let me back into his life when I'd broken his heart. That is true courage, true grace, and I will be grateful for that gift for the rest of my life." Bomi Bulsara dies in 2003 at age 95. At his funeral, Brian May gives the eulogy. "Bomi Bulsara made mistakes," Brian says. "He lost 20 years with his son because of fear and tradition, but in the end, he did the hardest thing any parent can do. He admitted he was wrong. He humbled himself. He asked for forgiveness, and he spent Freddie's final year making up for the lost time. That doesn't erase the pain, doesn't give back the years, but it gave Freddie something he desperately needed, his father's approval, his father's pride, his father's love, and for that, I will always respect Bomi, because he gave Freddie peace, and peace was the one thing money and fame couldn't buy." Mary Austin stands at the funeral, crying, remembering. After the service, she tells a story. "The day before Freddie died, I was sitting with him. He could barely speak, but he smiled at me, and he said, 'I'm not afraid anymore, Mary. Papa said he's proud. I can go now.' That's what the reconciliation meant. It meant Freddie could die in peace, could let go, could stop fighting, because he'd gotten the one thing he'd wanted for 20 years, his father's acceptance. So yes, Bomi made mistakes, but he also gave Freddie the greatest gift, the gift of peace, and I will always love him for that." The story spreads. Music historians write about it. Psychologists reference it. Family therapists use it as a case study. the power of reconciliation, the importance of saying what needs to be said while there's still time, the courage it takes to admit you were wrong. Fans listen to Freddie's music differently now. Songs like You're My Best Friend and Love of My Life, they take on new meaning. Maybe they weren't just about Mary. Maybe they were about the love Freddie always wanted but couldn't have. The unconditional acceptance, the pride, the I see you and I'm proud. Somebody to love becomes a prayer, not for romantic love, but for the kind of love that accepts you completely. The kind Bomi finally gave. Too late, but real. And We Are the Champions becomes an anthem not just of victory, but of survival. Freddie survived 20 years without his father's approval, lived, created, became a legend, and then, in the final year, got what he'd always wanted. That's not just winning. That's overcoming. That's transcending. That's proving that you can be rejected by the person whose opinion matters most and still become extraordinary. But also, and this is important, it's proof that it's never too late. That Bomi came back in Freddie's final year, and it mattered. It wasn't too late to heal, to reconcile, to love. Because sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't performing for billions. It's walking back into your son's life after 20 years and saying, I was wrong, and I'm sorry, and I'm proud. Bomi did that, and Freddie forgave him. And in Freddie's final moments, surrounded by people who loved him, he wasn't just Freddie Mercury, rock legend. He was also Farrokh Bulsara, beloved son, forgiven and forgiving, accepted and accepting. Both. Always both. And maybe that's the real lesson. You don't have to choose. You can be Farrokh and Freddie, traditional and revolutionary, your father's son and your own person. You can be all of it if you're brave enough, if you're honest enough, if you refuse to let anyone, even yourself, put you in a box. Freddie proved that every day of his life, and Bomi, in the end, understood it. That's not just a story about Freddie Mercury and his father. That's a story about becoming fully yourself, about forgiveness, about the courage to admit you were wrong, about the power of reconciliation, about coming home, not to a place, but to yourself, to your truth, to peace. Freddie found that peace in his father's prayers, in his father's pride, in his father's love, and he died knowing he was seen, really seen, by the person whose opinion he'd wanted most. That's not just a good ending, that's grace. Thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe for more.